Here we are in the month of March, and the CSL Global Organization's theme for March is what if? What if? And so we're going to focus on imagination today. And I'm looking at imagination from maybe a different perspective than what you've looked at it before. Because I'm not talking about imagination that's escapism. I'm not talking about only positive thinking. I'm not talking about daydreaming or wishful thinking. What I am talking about is one of the ways that spirit moves through us into all of the possibilities that it can express itself. I'm talking about the doorway for the infinite to express itself as us. I am talking about a spiritual faculty that each and every one of us have. Ernest Holmes had one of his great teachers was Emma Curtis Hopkins. And what she says about imagination is very key to this. What she says is imagination is the faculty by which we picture the good we desire. The faculty by which we picture the good we desire. And then Holmes goes on to say that when we use our creative imagination in strong faith, it will create for us, out of the one substance, whatever we have formed in thought. And in this way, we become co-creator with God. So let's take a step back. There is a spiritual principle that permeates everything, and that is that there is one life, and it moves through everything. There's one presence, one intelligence, one love, one presence, one power. That is part of everything. It's not that God's over here and life is over here, and occasionally they, mesh up, especially when things are going really well. God's there. What it does is show up as everything. It doesn't matter what it is. There is that power, that intelligence, the love that is the one in all of it. And when we remember that it is also the one substance, it is that which creates from itself, as itself, everything. It's not just some dead matter that's waiting for us to push it around. What it is it's living spirit who has a desire to express itself, and it is forever taking form. And it wants to express itself, and it expresses itself from our thoughts through the spiritual principle we call law, the law of mind. And what this is that which it responds to consciousness. It responds to thought. The law of mind is the means by which our inner conviction, our mental picture, our emotional acceptance of what it is we desire are impressed upon substance, this one substance, and it expresses itself as our experience. Now, in Science of Mind, we and I can't remember exactly the page, but I think it's on 140 somewhere, but it says love points the way and law makes the way possible. Love is our ideas. Love is the one life having such a great desire to express itself as each and every one of us, as you. So take a look at yourself on your Zoom screen. The one substance, one love, one life has this rich desire to express itself as you. And that's the love. And law is what makes the way possible. When we start thinking of our imagination in that respect, the faculty by which we picture the good we desire, that it helps us, it allows us to become the co-creator with God when we use it in strong faith. And I'll get to what strong faith means. Then imagination becomes holy. It becomes that spiritual faculty from which we form everything. Everything that you can see, everything that you experience, everything that is around you was a thought at one point in time. At one point, it was a thought. Has to be a thought. So when we look at imagination that way, what happens is that our imagination becomes our inner studio where we can shape patterns before it appears in the canvas of our life. So when we imagine, when we go out to that place of what it is I desire, we give direction to mind. And when we hold it in strong faith, and I will get to that, we become that co-creator. Hold it in strong faith. When we use our creative imagination and strong faith, what that means is we recognize, we remember, we identify with, we believe, and we act as if that there is no strain and there's no forcing. We don't have to force something to happen. I don't have to pray harder. If I pray harder, it'll happen. What it is I need to be in deep spiritual agreement with what it is I desire. I need to be in deep spiritual agreement with what it is I desire. And I'm going to go through a process that we can all use to help us get there and stay there. When we become this co-creator, we need to remember that we don't control everything. There is a world that's going on around us. Jason referred to that today. There are things that are going on that are not in my world that works for everyone. But what I need to do is not deny what's happening in the world. And that's one of a key point in the teaching that we have here, is that we do not deny what is happening. What we do is refuse to make that the final stop. We refuse to let that be the finality. We refuse to let that drive the rest of our imagination. Because what happens is when we use our imagination, when we go beyond the noise level that we're at right now, it helps us to stop letting the what is write what's next. It helps us to take fear out of the driver's seat and put faith in the driver's seat. So let me talk to you about a practice that can help us so that we can use our imagination and strong faith. And I kind of like to call it become the living spiritual mind treatment, the prayer, become a living affirmative prayer. You go, what? So we have this 5-step prayer of recognition that we recognize the one spirit, we unify with it, we understand that we are part of it, we make a claim to what it is we desire, we're grateful for that, and then we release it into the law. And when we become that living prayer, when we go in and recognize and always return to the fact that there is one life, one presence, one substance that permeates everything, and that, oh my gosh, I am of that. I am spirit expressing itself. I am a unique, individualized expression. It no longer becomes a tagline for Science of Mind. It becomes a way of life. And so I recognize that. And then what I do is I ask the question, what is the most loving, most life-giving possibility that Spirit is inviting me to accept right now? And I choose that highest good that I can honestly hold in my mind as what it is I desire to experience. And then I practice the strong faith. And this is simple, but may not be easy. It definitely takes courage. And that is to have an inner consent, an inner steady yes to that which Spirit is inviting me to accept right now. I align my thoughts and feelings and expectations with the good that I'm choosing. And you can do that. That is part of that realization part of an affirmative prayer that we call spiritual mind treatment. And I'm grateful for that. I become grateful for this. I'm grateful by aligning my thoughts, by making those small course corrections throughout the day. And then what I do is I release it into the law. And what does that mean? Because there's been many times in my life, probably in the last week, where I've released things into the law and it's like, yeah, you take it. I don't want to deal with this. Not what I'm talking about. When we release it to the law that makes the way possible. Now I live as if I mean it. You need to live as if you mean it and take that next aligned step. And once you've taken that one, take the next one. So it's recognizing that there is this one life, one power, one presence that is the creator, sustainer, and animator of all that is. And I am of that. I am an expression of it. Am I like, the person next to me? No, I'm not, because I'm unique. Spirit can express itself only through you, only as you can allow spirit to express itself. And then I start to choose that highest good that I can really hold in my mind, the one that's a stretch for me, where I allow faith to kick in. But it's something that I can really strive for, that I feel is attainable at this moment, and I can take these baby steps, because the part of this that is the most important is practicing that strong faith, finding that inner consent, having a steady yes, aligning our thoughts, our feelings, and expectations to this good that we are choosing, and then releasing it into the laws, not just letting it go. You got it, God. It's living like you mean it. It's asking those questions of, what can I do today? What is that next aligned step for me to do? And when I look at the entire situation in the world, this is not just a personal healing that happens, because if whatever I do to allow that greater expression of love, of the divine that I am, of the peace and the joy and the harmony that I am, everything that I can do to allow a greater expression of that for myself also creates a collective change, a change in the collective consciousness. We have way more power than we think we do of what's going on. Because when you think about it, my liberation is tied to your liberation. Your liberation is tied to the person next to you, to your family, to everyone that you touch, everyone that you interact with. It's tied to the cashier at the grocery store. So when I do this work, when I pray, when I do the envisioning, when I use my imagination, when I choose that highest idea and I make those course corrections, it's not a small thing. It's not a small thing for me to do. And it is not a small effect. It's a huge effect. It ripples out throughout all of humanity. And when we use our imagination, when we allow our imagination to be its to just be its wild self, excuse me, it takes us beyond the noise. It takes us beyond our old patterns. And it takes us beyond, well, this is just how it is. And it makes room for this deeper, rich future for ourselves and for everyone around us. In preparing for this, I came across it and was introduced to someone that I have not heard of before. His name is Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. He's can be very controversial. He is a professor at Temple University, and he is a speaker and proponent of diversity. And his messages are very powerful, as well as can be controversial. But the quote that I found of his that really started to shift me is, It's very similar to one of Einstein's quotes, but it's coming from a more contemporary. What he says is we have to be able to build a world that doesn't even exist yet. And that's a different imagination. I don't know that it's different, but what it does is it requires us to really go into our imagination. In this teaching, we talk about a world that works for everyone. And what does that mean? And we actually have what we envision. You can go out to our website, you can go out to the CSL or overall organization's website, and you can find what it is we envision. And I'll let you do that research. But what we do envision is a world where there is respect, a world where all needs are met, a world where we live in ease and grace. And so in the light that Mark Lamont Hill has given us, that we have to be able to build a world that doesn't even exist yet in this small R reality. Let's take a moment. I invite you to take a moment with me and imagine the world that we're here to live in, the one that we want to live in. And not as a fantasy, but as a spiritual work. And so if you'd like to close your eyes, you can. If not, you could cast your gaze down or whatever. But I want you to envision, let your imagination go. And what does that world look like? What does it feel like? And I'll just take you through a couple of aspects of it, a few aspects of it. It's this world where everyone is seen as valued, where everyone is recognized as the expression of the one that they are, that unique expression. And that there's this simple awareness that the life in me is the life in you. That there is respect for others, and that is just the baseline. That is the norm. That is the way things are. There's no need to shrink others down to a label or a stereotype. And that dignity and respect are the baseline of this world. Let's go a little deeper into this world where all needs are met. Food, shelter, care, education, safety, all are treated as expressions of this deeper truth that life is abundance, that there is one substance that is ever able to come into form, that there is no scarcity, that there is a greater good possible, and I am available. So just take a deep breath right now as we go into where we are living in ease and grace. Ease is the normal. It's a world where faith is in the driver's seat, not fear. We live from the worth of ourselves and others, knowing that worth. Before we react to something, we take that pause, take that breath, and breathe in peace. And we come from then that center of love that we are, where clarity is valued over urgency, and that relationships become places where the one life is honored. Just breathe that in for a moment. Feel what that feels like, where we can each walk with our head held high, where we feel that connection to everyone around us, where no one's left out on the margins. So imagination matters. Our imagination, and when we hold it as a sacred spiritual faculty that we have, and recognize that that is where creation starts, we become that co-creator with God for that life that we desire. that idea that we have in our imagination becomes form. And then that creates new patterns in our consciousness, which comes into form as new patterns in our relationships with ourselves and others. That we have a shared vision, and this shared vision, whether it is here at CSL Metro, whether it is with our family, whether it is in our own communities, our cities, our towns, our our nation, whatever it may be, there's a shared vision, and that becomes the new community where we hand imagination over to faith. For if we allow fear to run our imagination, then fear will write our future. When we dedicate this imagination, this shared vision, this new pattern of consciousness, these new ideas, when we dedicate that to spirit and to the good for us and the good for all, then spirit writes our future. It writes our future through us. It writes our individual future and our collective future. When we use our creative imagination and strong faith, it will create for us, out of the one substance, whatever we have formed in thought. And in this way, we become a co-creator with God. So what can I do? What can I do? There's a lot going on in the world. What can I do to have any impact whatsoever? First, let me share with you a quote that, again, had a lot of meaning to me when I read this, and it's from Rabbi Tarfon. He said, "You cannot save the world, but you can save the part of the world that is in front of you." So what can I do? So here's my opportunity for each of us this week is to choose an area of the world, whether it's your specific area, or you can go all the way out to the current happenings in the world. Choose an area where it feels heavy or broken or stuck. And ask yourself, what if healing were possible here? What would that look like? What would it feel like? And just allow your imagination to go along that line. What would it feel like? What would it look like with healing possible? And get the feeling tone of that. And then take one small action in your life that is rooted in that vision of healing. You can write a letter that you've been meaning to write, or write a letter to a congressman, write a letter to a newspaper. You can initiate a conversation that might be on the edge of a difficult one. You could support a local organization. You could and right in my own front yard here, I can practice seeing the divine in someone that I've judged. It's as small as that. It's like doing those little course corrections throughout the day of bringing me into alignment with that good that I desire. And so, in closing, imagination is a spiritual faculty. It is part of our spiritual toolbox to bring us out and above and beyond the noise that we hear, the effect that we are seeing, out beyond our old patterns of thinking, out beyond this is just how it is. And a famous example of how powerful imagination can be is general relativity. Einstein used his imagination to see what would it be like if I were faster than light? What would it be like if I could travel that fast? He would just allow his imagination to go. And then, against all odds, everyone, lots of people telling him he was crazy. If he wasn't correct. You couldn't do what you wanted, what he was saying. He kept making those course corrections. He had a steady yes. He aligned his thoughts and feelings and expectations with what he was choosing, what he knew was his truth. And guess what? It is now the basis of a whole section of physics. And it goes hand in hand with quantum theory that sometimes they're in conflict with each other. But that conflict just creates more opportunity to get rid of old thought patterns. And we can do that too in our own world, in our own individual world. And we can have a major impact on all of humanity. So again, in Rabbi Tarfon, you cannot save the world, but you can save that part of the world that is in front of you, right here, right here, right in front of you, right this moment. So that ends my lesson. And I would like to do spiritual mind treatment right now. And so I invite you to join me. I take a breath, and I invite you to take a breath, and I breathe in truth. I breathe in love, and I take a drink of water, so my voice will continue. For what I know is absolutely true, and I am grateful to know this truth. I'm grateful to believe it to the core of my being, that there is only one. There's only one source of all that is. There is one love, one power, one presence, one life. And that it is love that is the driving force of all that is. And this power and presence creates, animates, and sustains all of life. That it is not absent anywhere. It is present everywhere. There is no spot where it is not. That's not just a cute phrase. It is a spiritual truth. And when I take a step back and I look and I see that I am a creation of that I am a unique individualized expression of this love, it too no longer becomes a tagline. It becomes a way of life. It becomes my own truth. And what I know is that this is true of every person who hears my voice right in this moment. That each and every one of us is a unique, individualized expression of love, of the divine, of source. And that it is not just a tagline. It is the truth of our being. And so what I know is that is true of every nation, every leader, every person, everyone involved in humanity at this moment in time. I know that harmony, that peace, that joy and beauty and love is the basis of all life. And so I call upon that right now. I call upon that in everyone who hears my voice and all of those who do not, to allow that greater expression of love, to allow it to break through whatever is clogging it in this moment, whatever may be containing it, restraining it, confining it, and let it burst forth like the dam that has a crack in it, and allow that that tsunami of love and peace and joy and harmony to come out and just cover all of the world. And I express this desire. I express this truth. I express this knowing freely. I express it from that place of love, from that space of the I am, knowing its truth. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to speak this in word. I'm grateful to allow it to be the idea in the mind of God. And so I let this go into the action of the law, that loving action of the law, and allow it to unfold. And so I get myself out of the way and let it be. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.